Are you worried that your monthly Social Security benefits might no longer be enough to cover basic living expenses? Or perhaps, as a member of the younger generation, you feel uneasy about contributing to the system without knowing if you'll ever see those benefits in return? The numbers show that the Social Security system is facing a looming crisis, threatening the future of millions of Americans. Is President-elect Trump's plan the solution we've been waiting for? Let's dive into this analysis to find out. To understand Trump's proposal, we need to look back at how Social Security came to be and why it's now on such shaky ground. Social Security was signed into law in 1935 by President Franklin D. Roosevelt during the depths of the Great Depression. At its core, the program was revolutionary, a pay-as-you-go system where today's workers fund the benefits of today's retirees. For decades, this model worked seamlessly, buoyed by a growing workforce and a thriving post-war economy. But then came the demographic and economic shifts that turned this robust system into a precarious balancing act. Baby boomers. As this massive generation retires, the ratio of workers to retirees has plummeted. In the 1960s, there were about 5 workers per retiree. Today, it's closer to 3, and by 2035, it's expected to drop to just over 2. Longevity. People are living longer, which is a triumph of modern medicine but a challenge for Social Security. A program designed to support retirees for a few years is now funding them for decades. Economic inequality. Payroll taxes fund Social Security, but only up to a certain income cap, $160, $200 in 2023. As wealth concentrates at the top, a smaller portion of national earnings is subject to these taxes. The last major overhaul came in 1983 under President Ronald Reagan. Facing a solvency crisis, Reagan and Democratic Speaker Tip O'Neill brokered a bipartisan deal that combined benefit adjustments with payroll tax increases. It wasn't popular, but it worked temporarily. Social Security's solvency crisis isn't a sudden event, but a result of years of systemic challenges and external pressures that have converged into a critical tipping point. The Social Security Administration, SSA, relies on 2 primary sources of funding: payroll taxes and the program's trust fund. Here's where the problem lies. Declining payroll tax contributions. Payroll taxes account for about 89% of Social Security's revenue. However, stagnant wage growth and increasing income inequality have eroded this revenue stream. While the U.S. economy has grown, a disproportionate share of that growth has gone to the wealthiest Americans, whose earnings often exceed the taxable income cap. Trust fund depletion. The trust fund acts as a buffer, covering the gap when payroll tax revenue falls short. However, the fund is projected to be depleted by 2033. After this point, Social Security will rely solely on payroll taxes, which will only cover about 77% of promised benefits. Social Security was designed in an era when demographic realities were vastly different from today. Worker-to-retiree ratio. In 1945, there were 41 workers contributing to Social Security for every retiree drawing benefits. By 2035, that ratio will drop to just over 2 to 1, placing immense pressure on the system. Aging population. The U.S. population over 65 is expected to grow from 56 million in 2020 to 73 million by 2035. This demographic shift significantly increases benefit payouts while reducing the relative number of contributors. Economic inequality has compounded the crisis. Social Security taxes only apply to earnings below a specific cap, $160, $200 as of 2023. As income becomes more concentrated at the top, a smaller percentage of national income is subject to these taxes. Furthermore, inflation poses challenges. While Social Security benefits are adjusted annually for inflation, these cost-of-living adjustments, COLAs, often fail to match the actual rising costs of healthcare, housing, and other essentials. Beyond the numbers, the solvency crisis has real-world implications. For example, retirees living on the edge. A 2023 report by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities found that Social Security lifts 22 million Americans out of poverty annually. A 23% reduction in benefits would push millions of seniors below the poverty line. Intergenerational tensions. Younger generations, already burdened with student debt and stagnant wages, are skeptical about whether Social Security will even be there for them. This skepticism undermines public confidence in the program. Social Security's future isn't decided in a vacuum. It's shaped by a web of stakeholders, each with their own agendas, priorities, and influence. Retirees and beneficiaries. Who they are? Retirees, disabled individuals, and survivors of deceased workers collectively receive over $1 trillion in benefits annually. What's at stake? For these groups, even a modest reduction in benefits could mean the difference between financial stability and poverty. Retirees, in particular, are highly sensitive to changes because they have limited opportunities to supplement their income. Their influence. Seniors are the most reliable voting bloc in the U.S., giving them substantial political power. Politicians know that any perceived threat to Social Security can cost them this critical constituency. Policymakers and political parties. Republicans traditionally favor cost-cutting measures, including raising the retirement age, reducing benefits, or introducing privatization. Trump's stance is unique in that he opposes benefit cuts, putting him at odds with traditional GOP orthodoxy. Democrats advocate for expanding benefits and raising revenue by lifting the income cap on payroll taxes. They argue that wealthier Americans should contribute more to sustain the program. Bipartisan challenges. Achieving reform requires bipartisan cooperation, a daunting task in today's polarized political environment. Advocacy groups. AARP represents millions of older Americans and vehemently opposes benefit cuts. Their lobbying efforts are a significant force in shaping public opinion and legislative decisions. Think tanks and policy experts. Organizations like the Heritage Foundation and the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities offer competing visions for Social Security reform, influencing the debate with data and policy recommendations. Younger generations. Their concerns. Millennials and Gen Z are skeptical about Social Security's long-term viability. Many doubt they will ever see benefits comparable to what current retirees receive. Their role. While they lack the political clout of older voters, their concerns about fairness and equity add another layer of complexity to the reform debate. The president-elect. Trump's dual role as a policymaker and a political brand complicates the situation. His promise to save Social Security without raising taxes appeals to seniors and fiscal conservatives alike, but his lack of specifics has raised skepticism among analysts and opponents. Trump's proposal to save Social Security without raising taxes is a high-stakes gamble. Let's analyze the feasibility and implications of this approach. Trump's plan hinges on redirecting funds from other areas of the federal budget. While appealing in theory, this strategy faces significant challenges. The reality of waste. The Government Accountability Office, GAO, has identified approximately $100 billion in annual inefficiencies across federal programs. While significant, this amount pales in comparison to Social Security's $1.3 trillion annual cost. Sacred cows. Defense spending, which accounts for nearly $800 billion annually, is often cited as a potential source of savings. However, cutting defense spending is politically fraught and faces strong resistance from lawmakers and lobbyists. Avoiding tax increases. By ruling out tax hikes, Trump eliminates one of the most effective tools for shoring up Social Security's finances. Consider the following alternatives. Raising the payroll tax cap. Lifting or eliminating the income cap on payroll taxes could significantly bolster revenue. For example, subjecting all income above $250,000 to payroll taxes could eliminate up to 70% of the projected shortfall. Incremental tax increases. Small, phased increases in payroll taxes have been proposed as a less politically contentious solution. Adjusting benefits. While Trump has promised to protect benefits, other proposals include raising the retirement age. Aligning retirement age with increased life expectancy could reduce costs, but would disproportionately affect lower-income workers in physically demanding jobs. Means testing benefits. Reducing benefits for higher-income retirees is another option, though critics argue this undermines the universal nature of Social Security. Privatization a non-starter. Some Republicans advocate for partial privatization, allowing younger workers to invest a portion of their payroll taxes in private accounts. While this idea has support among fiscal conservatives, it's politically divisive and raises concerns about market volatility. Feasibility of Trump's plan. Trump's strategy relies on identifying waste and inefficiencies while avoiding tax increases or benefit cuts. This approach faces three major hurdles. Insufficient savings. Even optimistic estimates of waste reduction fall far short of what's needed. Political opposition. Any significant cuts to federal programs will face resistance from both parties. Economic uncertainty. Trump's plan does not account for economic downturns or other external shocks that could exacerbate Social Security's funding crisis. Social Security is more than a line item in the federal budget. It's a promise to the American people. Trump's plan to save it without raising taxes is ambitious, but its success hinges on overcoming significant political and fiscal hurdles. For policymakers, the challenge is clear. Act decisively or risk leaving millions of Americans in financial jeopardy. For citizens, the message is equally urgent. Stay informed, hold leaders accountable, and demand solutions that prioritize long-term stability over short-term gains. Because at the end of the day, Social Security isn't just about numbers. It's about people. It's about dignity. And it's about keeping our promises.